coming up on Retiring Well with Michael Reese.
Over here, if this goes down a little bit because the market's down, you don't care. You still got your $40,000 of income. What about over here? Well, what are you trying to accomplish here? What are your goals? What are your objectives?
Growth and accumulation phase of your life and switching to the preservation of wealth and income. Making your investments, making a plan to allow you to do the things you want to do in retirement is so vitally important.
Retiring Well with Michael Reese, helping you make smart decisions with your money so you can live a better life. Today is the day you can take back control of your money. Retiring Well with Michael Reese, where we believe your best is yet to come.
Welcome to Retiring Well. I'm your host, Michael Reese. I am thrilled to have you with us this week. We've got a great show lined up. This week, we are talking about the value of a second opinion. And I know that might not sound super sexy, but this is really important when it comes to your financial future. And when you think about it, a second opinion can be a very, very valuable thing. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine that you go to your doctor and your doctor says, "Oh, John, something's wrong here," or "Oh, Mary, we have a problem here. I think you've got X." Now, maybe it's cancer, maybe it's heart problems, maybe it's some weird disease, whatever it is. But they think this isn't looking good. "John, Mary, I want you to go see a specialist." And so off you go, right? You're not feeling great about that, but you think, "Well, I better go see the specialist." And you go see this specialist, and you sit down after your examination, and they run all those tests that they do. And you sit down, and the doctor says, "All right, John, Mary, I got to tell you, this isn't looking good. You have a life-threatening illness here. And this is serious. I mean, this is going to kill you if you don't do something about it. So here's what you need to do. You need to do A, B, C, and D. That's what you need to do." Now, here's my question for you. Do you just take that advice? Or do you maybe get a second opinion? Now think about this. We are talking about your life here. This is a life-threatening illness. Are you really just taking the first piece of advice you get and just, "Okay, whatever you say, doc"? Or do you say, maybe I should get a second opinion? Well, if you're like most people, if it's a life-threatening illness, you're probably going to get that second opinion, aren't you? And if you think about it, you probably should. Now, it's not just life-threatening illness stuff, right? I'm thinking back right now to Andrew Luck, the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. He's got that shoulder problem. He has a hard time throwing a ball. How many opinions do you think he's gotten on what's wrong with his shoulder? I mean, that's not a life-threatening thing. It's a career-threatening problem, but not life-threatening. But nevertheless, it's important to him. I mean, that's his livelihood. And so how many doctors do you think Andrew Luck is seeing on his throwing shoulder? I mean, probably a half dozen by now. He didn't get just a second opinion. He probably got a third, a fourth, a fifth. Heck, he might be on his 19th opinion. The point is, when you're dealing with your health and it's something really, really important, it's a good idea to get a second opinion. That's just common sense. Now let's transition that to your retirement planning. Now think about this. Maybe you've already retired. Maybe you're getting close to retirement. And you're chugging along. You think everything's fine. And guess what? The way the market's been these past few years, everything should be fine. But here you are, you're chugging along, everything's happy. But here's my question. Have you gotten that second opinion? Have you gone to somebody who is a specialist at retirement planning and gotten that second opinion on what you're doing with your retirement planning? That could be a very valuable thing. Because think about this. Think about this. You've worked your whole life. You've saved money your whole life. And you've built up this nest egg. Or maybe you're one of those lucky folks that receives some kind of an inheritance, and or the lottery. That would be even better, right? But you've got this pot of money. If you're retired, that's all you've got. You're not adding to it, not at all. And you've got a big job now because you're saying, okay, well, gosh, I got this big pot of money. I need to protect it. I need to take some income off of it. And if possible, I want to grow it. I mean, that's a big job. Are you really doing the right things for that pot of money? Is that money really going to last the rest of your life? Are you making smart choices? Or what if you're getting close to retirement? Same thing. You're getting there. You see it. You see the end. It's pretty soon you're going to be able to leave the workplace and enjoy your life. Are you doing the right things with that pot of money? Folks, getting that second opinion could be the most important thing you ever do, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Larry Flynn, one of the financial advisors here with Centennial Wealth. Listen, we're putting on a one-time special event to talk about one of my favorite subjects, taxes. Listen, folks, we've just had some major tax legislation happen here right at the end of the year, and we want to dive into this a little bit and show you how it affects you in your retirement. So please join us for this event, one time only. Thank you.
Hi, I'm sitting here with Larry Flynn. Thanks for being here, Larry.
Thank you, Mike.
He's one of the advisors at Centennial Wealth Advisory. And folks, as you may know by now, we certainly invite you to come visit with us. It's absolutely free to get a second opinion on your retirement planning. And I think it's important to get a second opinion from someone who's a specialist when it comes to retirement planning. And Larry, I'm sure they're wondering, if they pick up the phone and they call and come visit with you, what can they expect? What's that experience like?
Well, Mike, they can expect not to get heart sold, okay? We're going to greet them warmly. We're going to sit down and talk to them a little bit about maybe their story, where they're from, where they grew up, how they met their spouse, what they're dreaming of doing once they get soon to be retired or retired.
Kind of what are their goals, right?
Yeah, what are your goals? We're going to talk to them a little bit about who we are, what we do, show them how we do things, especially dealing in the market realities we find ourselves in today.
Got it. So essentially, they're coming in, you're learning a little bit about what's important to them, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish. I'm sure you're taking a look at what they're doing so far. You maybe share a little bit about you, and it's just in a very relaxed atmosphere.
That's right.
And there's no cost to do this. Is that correct?
No cost. No cost.
All right. So, folks, there you go. I mean, it sounds very simple, very easy, very laid back. There's no reason for you not to just pick up the phone, call the number on the screen, come visit us, get that second opinion. You'd be glad that you did.
You don't walk into a doctor's office for some blanket prescription for whatever ails you. You expect individualized attention, a doctor who listens, and a treatment prescribed to meet your specific need. When it comes to your financial future, why expect anything less? If you would like an independent checkup from an independent advisor with access to hundreds of possible solutions to help you meet your goals, contact us today.
This week in Chalk Talk, we're going to look at the components of building a portfolio for your retirement. And we've been talking this week about why it's so important to get a second opinion. This is going to be a great illustration as to why it's so important. So whenever you look at building a portfolio, you need to understand that your average rate of return that you get has two distinct components. So your total return is made of two things. CA stands for capital appreciation. Y/I would be your yield, or said another way, the income that your portfolio generates. So think about it this way. If you had a home, a rental home perhaps, the capital appreciation would be how that home value grows over time. The yield or the income on that home would be the amount of rent that you're getting net of fees every month, every year, etc. So let's imagine that you want to build a portfolio that has an average of, say, a 7% return. And let's also imagine that we're in the ideal world and you're thinking, okay, here I am in retirement. So imagine you're retired, or you're getting real close to retirement and you're thinking, okay, I want to average 7. Now, how would you construct a portfolio in the ideal world that would combine the income that portfolio generates and the capital appreciation? What would that ratio look like in the ideal world? Well, for a lot of us, it might look something like this. It might be something like 4%, 3%. Now, what does that mean? 4% would be the yield or the income from your portfolio. So what would that mean? Say you had $1 million, right? That's a round number. You've got $1 million. If your portfolio is generating 4% yield, it's about $40,000 of income. And that's income that you get each and every year that you could extract out for, to spend, to live on. Well, what's that other 3% up there? Well, that 3% right there, that's capital appreciation. You know what that is? That's inflation protection. That's what that is. So think about it this way. You start the year with $1 million. You earn 4% income, so you take that out. You get 3% capital appreciation at the end of the year. What do you have? $1,030,000. And then next year, you're going to get 4% on a little bit bigger number, so your income's going to go up, get a little more capital appreciation, and so on. When it comes to investing for your retirement, that represents pretty close to an ideal outcome, an ideal portfolio. In fact, if I could build a portfolio that was guaranteed to do that, we'd be thrilled to death. We'd be done. Now, there's no such perfect portfolio, but that's what you want to get to. You want to have something along that type of relationship. All right. Now, why do you want to get a second opinion? Here's why. Whenever people come into the office, and every day we have people just like you come in the office and we analyze your portfolio. And I'll tell you, this is what almost every time, this is what the portfolio looks like. Same 7% average return, say, but instead of a 4% yield, it looks more like this. 2, which means the other 5 is up here. So what does that mean? Let's imagine you're retired and you want that $40,000 of income. If you're structured this way, no big deal. Your portfolio generates it year in, year out. But what if your portfolio looks like this, where maybe you only have a 2% yield, which is 95% plus of the portfolios we see that come in here. I mean, all the time. Your portfolio on that same $1 million is generating $20K. You want 40. Where are you going to get the other $20,000? Well, you're going to have to sell something up here, aren't you? That's generating capital appreciation. You're going to have to sell stock, hopefully at a gain. But let me ask you, do stocks gain every year? No, sometimes they go down, don't they? Over here, if this goes down a little bit because the market's down, you don't care. You still got your $40,000 of income. What about over here? Well, you only have 20. Where are you going to get the other 20? You're going to sell stocks when they're down? And that's the last thing you want to do. The reality is this. This is a growth portfolio. That's what you use when you're trying to grow. This portfolio over here, that's a retirement portfolio. You see the difference? This is stable, this is not, especially when you're taking income. You want to know why you get a second opinion? It's right there.
Hi, I'm Larry Flynn, one of the financial advisors here with Centennial Wealth. Listen, we're putting on a one-time special event to talk about one of my favorite subjects, taxes. Listen, folks, we've just had some major tax legislation happen here right at the end of the year, and we want to dive into this a little bit and show you how it affects you in your retirement. So please join us for this event, one time only. Thank you.
Here at Centennial Wealth, when we talk about your best is yet to come, what we're really referring to is that retirement is different today.
Retirement represents a fundamental change. Yet most people don't match that with the fundamental change in their investments. Too often we see couples and individuals sticking with the same strategy that got them to retirement and not adjusting to a plan that will get them through retirement.
People who retire today are living 20, 30 years. And when you have that kind of time frame, you have the time to pursue the things that are meaningful to you, that are fulfilling to you.
In looking at your retirement income, you're no longer drawing a paycheck from the company you work for. Instead, you have to be the provider of that income. You don't want to leave this to chance, so we help clients evaluate all of their options to help provide the best solution based on their needs.
Most people in their working years put money into IRAs and 401ks because they wanted to push the tax off to their retirement years when they expected they would be in a lower tax bracket. Far too often, though, they find themselves in the same lifestyle, in the same bracket, and all they did is kick the can down the road.
Well, I'm happy to share with you, we have helped guide hundreds of families past that point into a future that is absolutely bright.
Although it's not fun to discuss, it's vital that we evaluate your life insurance and long-term care planning. The insurance world changes regularly, and you need to know that we're keeping you abreast of today's ever-changing environment.
The three biggest threats to our retirement savings is what we call the hit list. There's healthcare, inflation, and taxes. People can't afford to run out of money, so they have to plan for these things.
If you make smart choices about your money, then you have nothing to worry about.
No retirement plan is complete or properly constructed unless you have an estate plan in place.
We'll regularly bring in an estate planning attorney to speak with our clients to ensure that their estate planning is structured properly.
Today we see people with Social Security, no pension, and everything else in their retirement savings. The challenge is to turn that savings into retirement income that can last their lifetime, not subject to market fluctuations.
We want you to be confident. We know you can be confident. We've done it before. We can do it for you. Welcome back. This week we were talking about the value of getting a second opinion, and I have got a great example, a real life example of why this is so important. So let me tell you a little bit about Tim and Sandy. Tim and Sandy, they had just retired, and they came in because they wanted a second opinion, just like what we're talking about today. And here's kind of what they had told us. You see, he had worked, by the way, and saved up in his 401k. He had saved about $750,000, and then they had another $100,000 or so sitting in other accounts. And by the way, it doesn't really matter. The numbers aren't really that important because, I mean, gosh, you might be sitting at home, you might have, $7 million, you might have 70,000. I mean, the number doesn't really matter, but the concept is what's important here. So they had come to us and they said, all right, we're retired, we just retired, and we feel like it's time to really get that second opinion. So we sat down with them and we said, okay, let's start out with your goals, because that's where you always start in a meeting, right? You always start with, well, what are you trying to accomplish here? What are your goals? What are your objectives? I find in the financial industry so many times they always want to talk about the hottest investment out there they've got, or they just want to dive in and get a risk profile or something. And I mean, no, let's just relax. Let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish, what's important to you. And we did that with Tim and Sandy. And here's what they told us. They said, with our retirement, family was really important to them. They wanted to see their grandchildren. They had new grandchildren that they wanted to see, and those grandchildren lived some. They how it is with kids. They're spread all over the country. Somewhere in Washington D.C., somewhere in California. I mean, we're talking opposite sides of the country. They said we want to be able to travel, go see them. Buy them presents. We want to do a little. We've always had this bucket list item. We've always wanted to have this trip to Europe. We want to do that if we can afford it. We'd love to make sure that we're just comfortable. What they said to us is kind of important. They said, we never want to worry about money. We just, we don't want to worry about money. We just want to feel comfortable that we have enough. And you know what they were really worried about? They said, the thing we're worried about is, these stock markets, man, they've been up for a long time. We're really worried that there's a turnaround coming up, and if the markets go south, we're not real sure how much we can lose, that our portfolio would lose, and we don't want to lose very much if things go south. Does that sound pretty familiar? I mean, that's like a lot of people we talk to. And so we asked him, we said, well, let's explore that a little bit, Tim and Sandy. You tell us, let's imagine that the markets go south, like 2008 or something, when it was really bad. How much of this, $750,000, $800,000 are you okay with losing in any individual year? I mean, what kind of downside exposure are you okay with? And do you know what they told us? They told us the same thing that a lot of people tell us. They say, well, guys, we're pretty conservative, right? We're pretty conservative, so not much. And of course, we've been around the block a few times, and so we said, well, wait a minute now. What does conservative mean to you exactly, and what does not much mean to you? Well, in their case, it turned out that Tim and Sandy, they had different answers. Tim said, well, I don't really want to lose any more than 20% in a single year. What do you think Sandy said? She's like, I don't want to lose nothing. I don't want to lose it all. We hear this all the time, and maybe that goes on in your own household. But anyway, after exploring this a little bit further, we agreed that probably about a 10% wiggle room was about as far as they probably should be looking at. So they said, okay, that's a number we can settle on. And well, what does that mean in dollars and cents? Well, if they've got roughly $800,000 total saved, and they figure, well, as long as it doesn't go below $700,000, as long as we stay above that that $700,000 plus level, that's probably okay. All right. Well, then here's the issue. We took their portfolio, and they had a balanced portfolio. 60% stock, 40% fixed income. At least they thought it was balanced. We put it through the Morningstar software, and do you know what we learned? We learned that if another 2008 hits or something, a market condition like that, instead of losing 10%, they could lose about a third of their money. In fact, that's what happened back in 08. And you know what they said? They said, yeah, we remember that happening in 08. So because they got that second opinion, we were able to fix that problem and make their portfolio more stable for the rest of their lives. Are you starting to see where a second opinion might be helpful?
Hi, I'm Larry Flynn, one of the financial advisors here with Centennial Wealth. Listen, we're putting on a one-time special event to talk about one of my favorite subjects, taxes. Listen, folks, we've just had some major tax legislation happen here right at the end of the year, and we want to dive into this a little bit and show you how it affects you in your retirement. So please join us for this event, one time only. Thank you.
Your grandchildren are precious to you. They are your life. This is your time to have that special relationship. Taking care of yourself is taking care of them. Centennial Wealth Advisory is offering a free, no-obligation retirement review to make sure you don't run out of money during your retirement. Centennial Wealth Advisory. Your best is yet to come.
Hi, here with John Torbett and Art Canfield of Centennial Wealth Advisory, and we're talking today a little bit about getting a second opinion and what that really means. I mean, you think about if you had a life-threatening illness, it's valuable to get a second opinion on your health. So when it comes to your finances, and especially when you're looking at retirement, which is something pretty serious, Art, you want to make sure to potentially get a second opinion. So. What do you think, Art?
Yeah, I mean, when in this transition a lot of people are going through from their working years to retirement years, it's a big step in your life, and it's something that obviously you want to be very certain of, very sure on, and not something that you don't get many chances to do it over, if something's wrong. I think back a situation, it's probably been a year or so ago now, that you and I sat down with an individual, and they had just kind of started working with this new financial advisor, and something didn't feel right. They told us later that they had a product that was kind of sold to them in a way, and they weren't really understanding it, and they come into us for this second opinion. They had watched the show and thought they'd come in and see us. And basically, you probably remember it quite well, is, we were able to sit down, do a risk analysis, do a fee analysis, really dig down behind the scenes and see what this account was made of, and said, when we turn it over to you, is this what you wanted? Is this what you expected?
Right, and I remember, the conversation one was, looking at that risk and understanding, well, she was at a place where she wanted to, protect that money and generate an income stream, and based on when we were looking at that analysis, it was set up more for somebody our age where we're trying to get larger growth and everything. And the other big thing I recall too was on the fee side, where a lot of times, and you, the viewers, be aware of the fees and what those costs are. And there's tools that we have available where you can look behind to better understand, not only what you're paying for the investments, but then, the advisor costs. Obviously, it's a for-profit business, so there's costs involved.
Yeah. On the surface, if my memory serves me right, where this advisor was charging kind of a flat fee, like a yearly fee, and she actually wrote a check, and then that led her to believe there was no like investment cost or anything, when really behind the scenes it was steep. It was very high. It was kind of buried. And but long story short, basically we were able to kind of right in the ship for her, get that taken care of, and it's been a great relationship ever since. But really the point of this story is that if she wouldn't have got that second opinion, let's say, that she would have been stuck with this investment potentially for her whole life, or a big majority of it, that was far different than what she thought it was going to be or wanted it to be, really.
Right, and that's where you really have to be careful when you're evaluating all the different investment options and strategies that are out there. Is it doesn't necessarily all have to go all in. You don't want it all your eggs in one basket, where you're going to be tied to that for potentially a lifetime commitment, is really what it may end up being.
Right, and I think the importance is this is a huge decision. Obviously going from working years to retirement years, if you are going to change financial advisors, and that whole, what we call, that growth and accumulation phase of your life, and switching to the preservation of wealth and income, making your investments, making a plan to allow you to do the things you want to do in retirement is so vitally important, and you can't underestimate the significance of this decision.
Yeah, and that's where it's valuable. Getting a second opinion and just asking all sorts of different questions, whatever comes to mind, and like we talked about, it's sort of what that gut feeling is as you're sitting down and having those conversations. If it's something that you're not understanding, or it's going above your head, make sure to ask some of those questions, just to try and make sure that you're clear on what you're covering. So
yeah, I always tell people when I'm sitting down with them, especially for the first few times, our goal, we you, Larry, and I, we love to educate, and we don't expect the individual to be an investment expert, because if they were, they'd probably just do it themselves.
Right.
And that's fine too. But at the end of the day, you should be able to know enough to be confident and understand what you have, why you have it, and what it's supposed to do.
Exactly. And so, like we talked about at the beginning, if it's something where you're looking to get a second opinion, you want to understand maybe some of the risks you're taking, what fees you're paying, any question that you have, tax related, estate planning related, you're welcome to just give us a call at the phone number listed on the screen, and we'd be happy to sit down and talk with you.